You are listening to the Maple Footy Podcast. This is the unofficial football podcast of the North. I'm your host, Sam Little. Find me at official Sam Little on Instagram. There's nothing left to say except for sit back, enjoy, and welcome to the show.
Hello, yes, welcome back to another episode of the Maple Footy Podcast. And a lot happened in Canadian football over the weekend, but not super abroad. I followed it pretty closely, and there wasn't a whole ton of stories. Of course, I will cover the ones, but CPL, of course, if you didn't listen to my last one, CPL playoffs are underway. Canadian Premier League. Please watch it. Please support it. Both the podcast and the CPL. Anyways, kind of looking at that there really quickly, because I, of course, did the full kind of recap on a different episode, but York were eliminated by Atletico Ottawa, where Forge lost to Cavalry. So Cavalry moves on to the final where they were host. Forge, since they lost, go into the other side of the bracket where they will play Atletico Ottawa, and the winner will play Cavalry. I know it's a little bit confusing, but it's a little bit different and a little bit interesting. I kind of like it. So big, of course, setup there in Canadian football. And in MLS playoffs, Vancouver Whitecaps lost to LAFC over the weekend, but of course there is still another game to be played. So come on, Vancouver, come on. We need more Canadian representation as long as we can get it. So please win. that's my pep talk for you. Please just win. But over the weekend, getting a little bit sadder now. Over the weekend, it was confirmed that Canadian Liam Miller will miss the rest of the season after injuring his ACL, which is such a shame. If you listen to the podcast, you know how much of a Liam Miller fan I am, how highly I rate him, and how much he's really come into his own at Hull and with the men's national team, being a pretty, I would say, important piece of Marsh's puzzle so far during Marsh's reign. And like I said, has had a very good start to life at Hull. It is a real shame. It is a real shame. But of course, we will stick with Liam Miller, and only positive thoughts his way. I'm sure it's a very difficult time for him, given that his season's now over. Once again, just such a shame, but I really do hope that he comes back stronger. I do think he can. He will. And we'll be rooting for him. If we get any updates, I will share my findings. But for now, I believe I read an article that said they're still waiting to do the surgery because his knee is too swollen to operate on, which that just, like, you'd want to get the surgery. I assume you'd want to get the surgery over and done with, and then to have to wait even longer to get the surgery over and done with, it can't be fun. So I just really hope that he's in a good place mentally and he'll be back to a good physical place, hopefully sooner rather than later. But yeah, just such a shame to see anyone's season get cut short because of injury, and especially a guy that we root for and cheer on so closely. So nothing but positivity to Liam Miller. It really does suck, but hopefully it's just a roadblock and he'll be back stronger, and he's just such a good player. So I really hope that he can get back as soon as possible, but don't rush him back, please. Let him take his time. Moving into Alistair Johnston, who I think had a great week, a phenomenal week. Kept a clean sheet in the Champions League against Europa League winners last year, Atalanta, and Alistair Johnston put in a class performance, and it was a performance that I think in the Champions League was needed for Celtic as a whole, where I obviously, 7-1 against Dortmund, not ideal. But yeah, coming back here against a very, very strong Atlanta side and closing out 0-0 clean sheet on both sides, of course, but clean sheet for Alistair Johnston, where he was immense, by the way. If you missed the game or didn't even catch his highlights, I would highly recommend seeking out some of his highlights. If you if you want. I'm not forcing you to do nothing. But yeah, no, I thought he was immense and just showed his quality. So Celtic currently now sit in the playoff spots in this new revamped Champions League format, which, by the way, absolutely friggin' sucks. There was nothing wrong with the old format. I don't know why they got rid of it. But anyways, they sit in the playoffs on 4 points right now, just behind PSG. So that's something, I would say. But yeah, very class from Alistair Johnston, and his week didn't end there. Captained, led Celtic out. Yes, he started the game as captain against Motherwell and even scored. So big week for Alistair Johnston. I think as Canadians, I don't think we should take this lightly. The fact that a Canadian led out such a historic team, because Celtic is a massive team in world football. So it's amazing to see Alistair Johnston, a Canadian, lead them out. I think it's so surreal to see that we've come this far where Alistair Johnston is leading out the most successful team in Scotland and one of the most recognizable teams, I would say, to any footballing purist. So it's wonderful to see, is the point I'm getting at here. It's great to see. So full congrats to Alistair Johnston. It is nothing short of deserved. I think his rise has been immense, and I believe it'll continue. And just keep prospering, Alistair Johnston. You're the friggin' best. But outside of him, Jonathan David, what a week for him as well. Comes off the bench against Atletico Madrid in Madrid and turns the game on its head, scoring a penalty. The Iceman. I would love to see, by the way, I'd love to see Jonathan David and Cole Palmer just go band for band on penalties and just see what happens, because just so clutch from the spot is Jonathan David. Comes on against one of the best goalkeepers in the world, I think still, even at this point in his career. Comes on against him, scores a penalty, just nerveless inside Madrid, and it's beautiful to see a Canadian shining. And then, of course, gets the icing on the cake, seals the deal, gets the third goal, gets a brace off the bench. So are we going to say that Jonathan David is the owner of just Madrid because he's done it against Real and Atletico? I think there's a case to be made. I do think there's a case to be made. Anyways, just full congrats to him. We love seeing Canadians shine. Whatever team is about to get him on a free, you're getting a friggin' bargain. I will say that much. You are getting a bargain. This guy is the real deal. I know last week I'd said in my personal life I'd been a little bit vocal about some disappointment I've had with him at, say, World Cups or CONCACAF Nations Leagues. Yeah, that's out the window, guys. That's out the window. He's made me eat my words and then some. Whereas I will give myself credit here. I have always thought he is a very good player and is a well-rounded striker, but he is exceeding even my expectations of what I thought he could be. This is, to me, the best version of Jonathan David that we have seen. And that's saying something, given the fact that consistently now he's bagged goals and just has been an overall great player. So it speaks to the fact that this is probably the best Jonathan David that we've seen. And kind of ending on a positive note here, Tajon Buchanan, where he didn't see the pitch, he returned to the bench for Inter, and that in and of itself is a little bit of a minor win after such a horrendous injury. It's great to see that he is back on the bench. Obviously, that means he's ready to play. I wasn't expecting him to get in against Juventus, not because he's not talented, absolutely not because he's not talented enough. Just because that is such a big game to kind of be introduced into after, he got injured in June. I'm about to do mental math. About 4 months on the sideline after a broken leg, and for him to really bounce back so quickly is impressive. And it's only a matter of time before he gets his first minutes of this season under his belt. A lot of games are obviously going to be coming up, so I think it's just a matter of time until he gets in. And it's just a nice positive. You know, he didn't play, but it's a great positive to have to see our boy back. But moving on from that, we do have a Premier League match week to talk about, so let's talk about it. So by now, we may or may not know how this works, but we go through the segments: match of the weekend, biggest winners of the weekend, biggest underperformers of the weekend, best performance, moment of the weekend, relegation zone, European places, and title race. So let's kind of talk about it, guys. Match of the weekend, I think, Brentford Ipswich. It had a little bit of everything for everyone. I mean, 2 quick succession goals in the 28th and then 31st minute from Ipswich, going 2-0 up. And then you'd think maybe they're going to get to halftime in the lead. Nope. Wisa scores in the 44th minute. Okay, maybe we're still in the lead, 2-1. No, sadly, Harry Clark own goal, 41st plus 1. So now we go in to halftime as level. And then coming out of halftime, Harry Clark, sorry man, it was not your day. Yellow card, and then Mboma 2 minutes later scores a penalty to make it 3-2 for Brentford, which seemed a far cry from happening just 20 minutes ago. And then Harry Clark, just less than 20 minutes later, receives a second yellow, so that's a red card. 2 yellows, red card, you're sent off. So there you go, a penalty and a sending off. Just another thing for people to get to talk about and see, proving that this game had a little bit of everything. And then 4 minutes after that, Liam Delap enters the pitch, and 13 minutes after that, Liam Delap scores, and this guy is enjoying a great start to the season, personally. Of course, sadly, his team isn't replicating it, but he's currently got a good few goals. I believe that's 5 or 6 now, which is pretty outstanding given where Ipswich are in the table. You wouldn't really expect, someone playing for 18th Ipswich to be having such a great start to the season in front of goal, but he has. So you think, okay, we're 3-3. Seems like probably a fair result. Nope. 96th minute, and Mboma scores again to break Ipswich hearts, and I think it is a real shame for Ipswich. They just couldn't see it out. But it's a great game in all fairness. But yeah, it just kind of breaks Ipswich hearts. Brentford get the 3 points. Hard worked, definitely very well earned, I would say. I think either team, if they walked out with 3 points, is very well earned. If they walked out with a point, it was very well earned. It was one of those games where it was extremely back and forth. Like I said, had something for everyone. If you missed the game, maybe check out the highlights. If you maybe have the time, why not watch the game? Who cares? Throw it on. Why not? There's nothing wrong with watching it. That's something, by the way, where people have like this thing about like watching like an old sports game. I don't know. I think it's kind of fun. As someone that's done it now for the podcast, I find it pretty fun getting to watch the games. Maybe, yeah, you lose a little bit of the suspense, but I don't know. It's a little bit fun. But yeah, if you have the time, put on the highlights, put on the game. It's a very entertaining one. So definitely, I would say check that game out. And moving on, of course, biggest winners of the weekend. Guys, I hate to sound like a broken record. I think I've said them a good few times now, but I think it's Manchester City. They win, and Liverpool and Arsenal both drop points. Of course, Liverpool and Arsenal play each other. They didn't both lose. They drew. But City now reclaims that top spot, and something that's I think has echoed throughout both Liverpool and Manchester City is maybe they haven't deserved to win games at times, but they find a way to pull the rabbit out of the hat and they get it done. City early on strike against Southampton. Southampton, to their credit, made it harder than I thought it was going to be for City, but still City does win. It's still not a vintage City performance, but they get it done, and it's a big win for them having both title rivals drop points. Another big winner, of course, for this weekend is, I would say, Wolves, guys. I would say Wolves. Now, they don't win here, but just given the way that they got the points and the fact that now they've finally got more than 1 point, and match week 9? They finally have more than 1 point to show after 9 match weeks. But the way that it happens is, of course, Brighton are up 2-1 in the stoppage time of the second half, and they're 4-on-1, and somehow they don't score. But worse than that, Wolves then somehow spring a counter on you, and then Cunha scores the equalizer, which 5 minutes ago in the 88th minute, they had only just scored their first goal. So in the 87th, Brighton were on their way to a victory, a 2-0 victory, and then Wolves just decided to lock in, I guess. I don't know, I guess as you do. But it makes it extremely entertaining, and that's what we live for as football fans, right? We want to see those entertainment moments. We want to see these dramatic moments. We want to, see Wolves have more than 1 point after 9 match weeks, and they have done it. They have 2 points on the season. But yeah, I think that's a big moment for Wolves. That could be the turning point that they need in this season. And then another, I would say, I don't want to say big win, because once again, it's not a win, but Everton, another late goal. It was the weekend of late goals, by the way. Another late goal, Beto in the 94th minute, assisted by Ashley Young. Yes, Ashley Young is still kicking and is still providing for his team. Good on you, Ashley Young. But Ashley Young grabs the assist for Beto in the 94th minute, and it gets Everton a point, which have been kind of like Wolves, a little bit hard to come by. Not as hard for Everton, as they do have 9 compared to Wolves 2. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not trying to pile on Wolves here. But yeah, no, Everton needed that, I think. And that's some good form that they've kind of found themselves in. Looking at their recent form calendar, let me pull it up extremely quickly for you. They haven't lost in their last 5. So that's not bad, especially given how they started the season, throwing away leads, like 2-0 leads in 2 back-to-back weekends. And then since they did it against Villa, 1-1 to Leicester, 2-1 against Palace, 0-0 with Newcastle, 2-0 against Ipswich, and 1-1 against Fulham. Yeah, that's pretty good form that you found yourself in, Everton. And a late equalizer, is enough to kind of keep that form chugging along. And I think that these are the moments when you kind of look back, if Everton are in and around the relegation zone but stay up, these are the kind of moments that you look back on and go, that's a season-saving moment, perhaps. When you look back on it, of course, come the end of the season. And then moving into our biggest underperformers, and I think now's the time to talk about it, right? The elephant in the room, I haven't mentioned it just yet. Erik ten Hag has officially been sacked by Manchester United. And I always say I never want someone to lose their job, of course, but I do think that it was probably time. And I don't mean that as any disrespect to Erik ten Hag, but I do think it's probably time. The only thing that confuses me is the timing of it. And that's not me saying, well, United's been in such great form. No, I just mean in the sense that, why didn't you just part ways with him at the end of last season? It just kind of shows that I don't think the ownership knows what they're doing, as I don't think we needed any more proof of that. But it just kind of shows they don't know what they're doing. They've now backed him to the moon in this last transfer window. He's gotten the players that he wants. Like, this is his team. And then 9 match weeks into the season, you sack him. It just doesn't make sense to me. If you were going to do that, why not have just done that at the end of last season? But he won the FA Cup. We can't part ways with him. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me, the timing of it all. Like I said, not that they're in great form, just the fact that you've backed them and just gave them an extension at the end of last season, and now you sack them not even 10 match weeks into this season. It just doesn't make sense to me. Who is United going to get? I don't really know at this point. I know they're reportedly in talks with the sporting manager. I think United needs to manage their expectations. And this may sound like banter a little bit, but I mean this genuinely. I think United need to manage their expectations as being just a top 8 club at the moment. I think they're just throwing stuff at the wall. and hoping that some of it sticks without any real plan. I mean, post Fergie, how many managers have they gone through now? David Moyes, Louis van Gaal, Jose, Ole, Ten Hag. I feel like there's probably someone I'm missing in there. I know Michael Carrick, of course, was the caretaker manager for a couple of games, but I could be missing like an actual like manager where he wasn't just a caretaker. But I think that they need to kind of just manage expectations a little bit of going, since Fergie's left, we've been a consistent top 8 club. We haven't challenged for a title since then. We haven't challenged for Champions League. And I know they've finished second in the league, but they finished second by like some margin. So it's not even like they really challenged for the league in the years that they finished second. They are inconsistently in Champions League and consistently poor when they make Champions League. Yes, they do have some domestic trophies in them since Fergie left, and of course a Europa League. But I don't know. I think you kind of have to manage your expectations a little bit. It's not going to happen overnight again where you're just going to appoint, an Alex Ferguson and you're all of a sudden going to be Manchester United again. I think you have to take your time and you have to really evaluate the club and where it's at. And like I said, I'm not saying this as a banter of United should be in top 8 and that should be their goal. I genuinely mean of really, you need to reflect and look at where you've been and where you are currently. You're not a top club. Yes, the name Manchester United is a top name and is a worldwide brand. Of course, that's obviously not a debate. But to think that you are still a top team at the moment and have been for the last 10 years, I think would just be delusional in my opinion. And I think it's time for some serious conversations and reevaluations to be had if you are in the United picture. That's just my opinion. I'm just a guy with a podcast, so what do I know? But that is truly how I feel. Once again, not banter, just seriously what I genuinely believe. And who knows, maybe the next guy they bring in is the guy and he turns it around quickly, changes it, and he brings United back to where their fans think that they should be. But looking at the track record, it'll probably be a good managerial bounce, like new manager bounce. And then the form will probably fall off a cliff. And then a lot of unhappy players will maybe or maybe not come out or just not perform. And then the cycle continues. But who knows? Maybe I will be wrong. It has happened before, and it will probably happen many more times in my lifetime. So maybe this will be one of the times where it happens. But moving away from the underwhelmers, I know that wasn't really an underwhelmer, more of me just talking about Manchester United and Ten Hag. But I would say that United season as a whole so far has been underwhelming. And they obviously did lose to West Ham over the weekend. So yeah, I guess I can qualify as an underwhelmer this weekend. My moment of the weekend, I have a couple of, obviously those late winners would be some Wolves with Cunha, and then of course, Beto. I forgot his name for a second. Beto for Everton, big goals, of course. And then looking at, once again, guys, I'm sorry, I got a fanboy about Reece James again. I just love watching Reece James play. I love the way he plays. I just wish that injuries didn't exist because injuries are robbing us of just such a great player. And after the comments Enzo Maresca made of questioning, I think is a polite and short way to put it, of questioning Reece James' leadership, I think this was the performance that kind of shows that Reece James may not be the most vocal leader, but will lead by example. You can make the case he's probably at fault for Newcastle's goal, but I think he well and truly makes up for it in the second half where he saved potentially 3 goals or goal-scoring opportunities. So I would say he's well and truly made up for it. It was a great performance, I thought, a great rebound from kind of maybe being at fault for that first goal. I just love watching Reece James play. And my moment of the weekend, I guess, is getting to watch Reece James play. But another moment of the weekend, I think, is an extremely crucial moment at the top of the table. And it's Mohamed Salah scoring for Liverpool. What I really found interesting as well, by the way, was if you watch Chelsea's goal against Newcastle, the one that Nicholas Jackson scores. Cole Palmer, beautiful ball to Pedro Neto. Pedro Neto, great play, puts on a play for Nicholas Jackson. Nicholas Jackson scores. And by the way, a tangent within the tangent now. Nicholas Jackson looks a very, very good player this season. Not that he looked a bad player last season. He just wasn't finishing his dinner last season. This season, he's instilled with this confidence. I don't know. Maybe he's been working on shoot and drill. I don't know. Whatever's doing, keep doing it, because those are the chances that Nicholas Jackson would miss last year. And I know how would he miss from 6 yards out and it's on a play from him? He missed those last year, and this year he's not missing those as frequently as he was. So it's good to see. But anyways, back to describing two goals. So that was Chelsea's goal against Newcastle. And then 2 hours later, Trent Alexander-Arnold puts through a great ball for Darwin Nunez. Sorry, I had to think. I couldn't remember if it was Nunez or Jones. It was Nunez. Puts in a great ball for Darwin Nunez, who then teases up for Mohamed Salah, and then Salah scores. If you watch the goals, they are extremely similar. And it's just something that I found really interesting. Not that I'm saying, Liverpool must be studying the Chelsea game tapes of a game that happened 2 hours before, but just something that I really found interesting. Was really cool. But I think this is a big moment for Liverpool, because they were pushing a lot in that second half to find another goal, because in typical Arsenal fashion, they come out in a winning position and decide, instead of trying to get another goal, they're just going to set up shop, which is still, and I will still always harp on this is a reason why I don't believe Arsenal have it in to win the league. They aren't winners. They go out there, they're in a winning position at home, and they set up shop and just defend all second half. Like, I'm not saying be careless and be stupid on the ball, but my goodness, like, attack or something. But Liverpool's pushing all half, and in and around the 80th minute, Mohamed Salah gets that important goal, and how important that could be for the title race, only time will tell. But I think it's a massive moment. You expect a guy of Mohamed Salah's scoring prowess to really show up in that game, and show up he does in these Arsenal games. That's 8 seasons in a row now that he has scored against Arsenal for Liverpool. So obviously a team that he very much enjoys playing against. But yeah, a massive moment, potentially, of course, depending on how everyone's season goes. But at the moment, that's a massive, massive moment. So now hopping into our relegation zone, let us look who are the bottom 3. I'm going to predict Wolves. I'm sorry. I'm not meaning to hate on Wolves. I actually really respect them as a club. But yes, it is Southampton, Wolves, and Ipswich have found themselves in the relegation zone after Palace picked up points and Wolves and Ipswich, of course, did not. Southampton, I've made my feelings clear on Southampton. It'd be cool if they stayed up. I really don't see it happening, though, especially when you have a keeper like not saving, I think, a pretty savable Erling Haaland attempt. But that's just my opinion. I think Ramsdale probably should have done better, and he's probably going to be adding a third relegation to his CV. But, teams keep signing him, so obviously they see something in him. But I just think he's been a bit of a letdown for Southampton. You would have wanted him to kind of be that goalkeeper that can kind of dig you out, but I find he's just not. And then, of course, Wolves picked up their second point of the season, taking them off the bottom of the relegation zone and into 19th place. So I do think that this could be the turning point for Wolves. I have been very vocal that Wolves, I do think that they will turn this around. And I know last week I had kind of said I'd be sweating if I was a Wolves fan, but this could be the turning point of their season. So that could be a massive, massive point and goal scored. Who knows? Maybe I look back at the end of the season and goes, well, they ended the season with 2 points, and that was the last point they got. But no, I really don't think so. I do think that Wolves now will kick on from this, and I think they'll be safe come the end of the season. Ipswich, sadly, once again, as cool as it would be for them to stay up, and as great as a performer as Liam Delap has been so far this season, I just don't think they have enough. They really do feel like a one-man team right now with Liam Delap. And it is a shame because after 22 years away from the Prem, you do want them to stay up. As a neutral, at least, you want them to stay up. But I'm just not sure they have it in them. Palace is the closest outside of the relegation zone. Everton and Leicester are currently 5 points clear of it. Obviously, a lot can change. There's still a lot of season left. Manchester United is only 7 points clear. A lot of season left. We don't know if United could get relegated. I'm kidding. That is me bantering. But yeah, Leicester and Everton, 5 points clear. But like I said, long season, lots of games to be played still. That could change. Crystal Palace, of course, outside the relegation zone by 2 points now. So we'll see how this continues to shape up and play out. Looking at the European places, Chelsea comes back into 5th spot, just 1 point off of Aston Villa. Brighton and Forest are just 1 point off of Chelsea. So as I kind of keep harping on about, it is great to see a team like Nottingham Forest up there as they were battling relegation last year, and a couple points deducted as well. And it's just cool to see a team like Nottingham Forest there. It shows you how quickly the league can turn around in or out of your favor. And then, of course, Aston Villa, they are handling Champions League and Premier League currently. They're balancing it pretty well. I mean, technically right now they are first in Champions League, so they're balancing it quite well right now. I mean, Unai Emery was deemed not good enough for Arsenal, but he has been deemed good enough for Aston Villa. So we love to see it. We love seeing these teams. We love seeing different teams up there challenging. It is great to see, and I think it's great for the league. And of course, I've kind of, as I usually do, I have talked pretty in-depth about the title race, so I don't have a whole ton to say about the title race at this moment. I think City will be the happiest of the three. I think Liverpool will be the second happiest of the three. And then Arsenal are tied on points with Aston Villa. They're 5 points back of City in first. I think Arsenal, for them, it's a missed opportunity once again. That's like 3 times. We've already said that this season with City. And then, of course, Bournemouth, they lost last weekend. Not Bournemouth. Arsenal lost to Bournemouth. And now here they've squandered another opportunity, I think, to beat a title contender. And they just haven't, drop points to City and Liverpool now. I think it's really poor management. I think it's really poor on the team. But you got Liverpool and City right now, just 1 and 2 at the moment. 1 point separating the two of them. Lots of season to play. 1 point. 1 point is not a whole ton when there is 29 games left. But with all that being said, that brings this episode to a close. I do hope you enjoyed. I do thank you for listening, of course. If you haven't, check out my CPL playoff podcast. I think it was very good. I'm quite biased, though. If you didn't check out the ones from last week, who knows? Maybe you want to check those out, too. I thought the Canada one last week was probably my best episode. I really enjoyed that one. I don't know. I just locked in. I'm kidding. I thought it was really good. It was my favorite episode I've personally done. My favorite solo episode I've done. So if you haven't checked that out, maybe go check it out. Let me know if I'm right or wrong on that one. But with all that being said, follow along my socials and all that fun stuff. Keep listening. I'll be back next week. I'll be covering the CPL still, and of course covering the Premier League. So please do keep listening, keep following. I do appreciate it. A lot more stuff coming very soon. I'm very excited about everything. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening. Until next time. Cheers, everyone.
And that was your Maple Footy podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Check my socials for any and all future updates at Official Sam Little on Instagram, where I am most active. And until next time, live, laugh, little.